He's a former NWA World Heavyweight Champion, a four-time NWA Florida World Champion, a WWC and CWA World Champion, as well as a WWE Hall of Famer in the class of 2009. Coming all the way from the Funkin' Conservatory in Ocala, Florida, the one and only Dory Funk Jr. joins the show. Mr. Funk, thank you so much for coming on with us.
Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. It just makes me so proud. Thank you.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. I mean, just such a huge fan of yours, your family, your brother, your father, everything that you guys have contributed to the wrestling business is an absolute joy for fans. So when I have to introduce somebody with all those nice credentials, it makes it very, very easy to do so.
Okay, and at the same time, I'm so appreciative for everything that the wrestling business has been for me and my family and my life.
Oh, it's
very appreciative.
It's such a great story. We were able to talk to your brother Terry about a year and a half ago, and we got to talk more about his career rather than kind of focusing in on the family name. And when I think of the name Funk, and I think of your legacy, and I think of what your family has contributed to the business, when the book is kind of closed on professional wrestling and people look back at the Funk family, like, what do you kind of want them to remember about you guys? Is it each individual career or what the general contributions were overall to the professional wrestling industry?
I have a very different personality than my brother that's a public personality to the wrestling fans. But I would like them to remember that I was a wrestler, and that's the way I made my living, and had some. I am very appreciative for all the wrestling fans that backed me, supported me, and followed me in so many championship matches. It's not only the NWA World Championship, it's a career in North America, it's a career in Japan, and I'm just very grateful to all the wrestling fans.
Absolutely. And not only that, but your contributions to helping train the next generation of talent and seeing all the names that you've helped kind of foster in the industry. And when you kind of sum up 55 plus years of just your own individual career, I mean, it's an absolute who's who of who you've battled in the ring with and who you've actually, competed against and where you've competed against. So being you've had success in Japan, in the United States, and all over the world, is there any one place that you always love to compete in, whether it's a territory or a location or even a continent? Like you said, you had so much success over in Japan as well.
Oh, I love going to Japan. I have a terrific time over there. I actually have learned to speak some of the language, but I love working here in the United States of America, Canada, Mexico. I've been treated fabulously by the wrestling fans, and I just want to bring up one thing that we have coming to the Bang TV soundstage here in Ocala, Florida, very soon, next week. 1 week from today, June 30th, Mick Foley is going to be here at Bang TV, and he's going to be doing his show one night only. And we are one of a worldwide tour that Mick Foley is going on that includes Australia, all across America, and we're just so proud to be a part of his show. And he's doing our show for charities, and the charities that he's doing it for free, so that the funds that we raise can go to charity. And the charities that we're supporting from the Mick Foley show will include the Taxman's Charities here in Ocala, Florida, Champions for Special Needs Children, Marion County Humane Society for dogs and cats, and Feed the Need for homeless children.
No, it's absolutely fantastic, and we just spoke with Mick Foley about that show, specifically his one-man show, but knowing that he's coming down to Bang TV, is really cool because obviously Bang TV and Mick Foley, that's a hand-in-hand relationship, but also, the connections he's got to Terry and the matches they've had and the career parallels that they had in some regards. But also, I look at a guy like Mick Foley and I see how he was a great worker, but it was overshadowed by a lot of the hardcore wrestling and the stunts that he did and some of those amazing bumps that he took. But when I look at you and you're the opposite, you're so technical and you're such a ground attack and you're this and that. How do you kind of teach the students coming into Bang TV and to the Funky Conservatory? How do you kind of teach them that there's a difference between that hardcore stunt style, but also this ground and pound like you always were so great at?
All I've got to do is put a video of Mick Foley up, and I've got several videos of Mick Foley on my website at www.dory-funk.com. And if you'd like to see a wild and crazy wrestling style that's completely opposite of Dory Funk Jr., just go to my website. But I think contrast is what makes this business so interesting. I mean, there's the Brisco name that I've been associated with for so long. It means they're going to see great wrestling. My brother, Mick Foley, they're going to see wild and crazy stuff with very little wrestling.
Now, with you specifically, I always think about, you think about Amarillo, Texas, Double Cross, and, different kind of things with Terry and Dory Sr. But with you, I always think of the NWA World title. I mean, you held the title for 4.5 years. You beat Gene Kiniski for it. I just always think of you and NWA and kind of that great worker and that great wrestler. Did it mean a lot to your career and obviously your legacy to be associated so tightly with being the NWA champion and traveling the world?
Oh, it meant everything to my career. But let me say this. We had a fabulous career to start with. My first year in the wrestling business was I had been working as close to the belt as I could, going to university, and my father had told me I had to finish university before I could turn professional wrestler, and I did do that, and we had some very, very difficult times. And however, the first year in the wrestling business, my salary was, and I'm not saying this to brag at all, but it was the same as Mickey Mantle's, and it was just a really fabulous thing my father could do for me in training me for professional wrestling and getting me set for that, because it's been a fabulous trip from the day I turned professional wrestler in 1963, for that matter, just after we won the Sun Bowl championship at West Texas State University.
And so many great guys obviously came out of West Texas State. But staying with your wrestling career and the NWA title, how important it was, sometimes you go back and you watch old matches, you're like, oh, that doesn't quite hold up. But your wrestling really held up over the years. And I love watching old matches, you versus Jack Brisco specifically. Can you just talk about a little bit of that rivalry, obviously in Florida and then kind of all over the world and all over the NWA and just that rivalry itself? Because when you think of you versus Jack Brisco, I mean, it's two of the greatest professional wrestlers ever.
Well, it started in Florida. And from Florida, it was Sam Mushnick up in St. Louis wanted the match. And my father in Amarillo, Texas, he wanted still, even though Jack Brisco is one of the toughest competitors in professional wrestling, my father wanted the match for the Amarillo territory. We went over to Japan. It was highly accepted in Japan. What they would say is two gaijins wrestling each other on a main event, myself and Jack Brisco, in Tokyo, Japan. And as the matches became exposed, more and more video, more wrestling tapes, Brisco and Funk became synonymous with professional wrestling, really, really good wrestling. Jack was an NCAA amateur wrestling champion, and that style fit fit with his way of looking at professional wrestling, and mine too. Incidentally, I was West Texas AAU amateur wrestling champion, which West Texas isn't like the NCAA, but it's a pretty big area, and a lot of tough guys are there.
Absolutely, and everyone always thinks of you and great wrestling being one of the greatest workers of all time. Bret Hart says you're the greatest worker of all time. I always think of you and Terry, the only brother combo to hold the NWA title, and then I think of you and Terry teaming together in All Japan and just lighting it up and kind of taking over or that side of the world as well. And great match from 1984, Dave Meltzer 5-star match. You and Terry versus Bruiser Brody and Stan Hansen. Do you look fondly at matches like that in Japan?
Those are two West Texas boys.
Yeah, exactly. Boys inventing in Japan.
Yes. Japan was another one of the thrills of my life, is being able to wrestle over in Japan and having famous matches, wrestling matches with Antonio Inoki, Mr. Baba, Sakaguchi, who one time took Inoki's place in a match with me in Osaka, Japan. Jun Akiyama. I had a lot to do with teaching Jun Akiyama and about the wrestling business. And Takao Omori is another one of my students. Another student that really did a fabulous job is Jumbo Tsuruda. And before I get too far away from Jack Brisco, I want to mention his brother too, Gerry Brisco. And I've had some really competitive matches with him. And he's been a contributor to us here and at Bang TV by coming down and representing WWE when our kids are putting on their shows. It's just been a fabulous trip through the business.
Now, is there like a favorite match of yours that really, really sticks out, or just maybe a favorite opponent that really sticks out in your career above all others?
Brisco, Wahoo, and Valentine. I can't name one. I got to name at least three. And they were really great wrestlers. And basically about the wrestling business, we drew a lot of money. And Wahoo and Valentine were totally different style than Jack Brisco, but they were huge box office attractions in Houston for Wahoo, and Valentine for the same for Wahoo, for Houston.
It's unbelievable. A career that we can't shrink into the amount of time we've got today, but we appreciate the time you spent with us this morning to talk about a couple of these memories. Before we end it, please share with the fans again where they can find all the information about the Funkin' Conservatory, the Mick Foley Show coming up, Bang TV, and anything and everything going on in the world of the great Dory Funk Jr.
Okay, it's all on the website, and our website address is www.dory-funk.com, and all about Mick Foley, and there's so much on the website that I couldn't begin to cover that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if they go to our website, I'll get the information from you guys, and they can find out how to find this interview. Okay, I'll have it up there. And I really thank you guys for the opportunity to talk to you about the wrestling business, Japan, and the people that I looked at as big stars.
Oh my gosh, your website is possibly one of the best wrestler websites ever created because there's so much information, there's so many links, there's videos.
I can't believe you said that. Thank you.
Oh my gosh,
you.
Mr. Funk, I'd be stupid to not say it. It's absolutely unbelievable. Every time I go on your website, I grab the first person that I can find and I drop them in a spinning toe hold because it gets you that pumped for your career.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh.
I like our website.
No, I love it. I love it.
That's great. Oh, terrific.
Absolutely. Well, Mr. Funk, thank you so much for joining us today. It was our pleasure, and hope to see you again sometime.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I hope to be able to do this again sometime.